I enjoy weddings. As a deacon, I get to officiate when the couple makes their vows. It's the beginning of new life for the couple. I remember the first wedding that I did. I was a new deacon. I had been ordained less than a year. I had been moved over here to Good Shepherd, so I knew very few people. And the ceremonies were very hard for me. The bride had asked Father Richard to do the wedding. I was relieved. Father Richard told me he wanted me to officiate it as my first wedding. And like I say, that was extremely hard for me. It wasn't just hard because it was my first wedding. It was because the bride was my youngest daughter. Oh, you know my daughter. At weddings, people are filled with joy. There is laughter, dancing, and wine. At both of my daughter's weddings, we had a great feast, and thank goodness we did not run out of wine. In the gospel today, we encounter Jesus at a wedding feast where exactly that happens. The wine runs out. Imagine you're hosting a dinner with friends. Suddenly you realize that you've run out of something needed, essential for the meal. If it's a small gathering of your friends, you might laugh it off. But for that couple, this was no ordinary dinner. It was a wedding. And at a wedding, the stakes are much higher. There were not just close friends, but relatives, some of whom came from distant areas. And then there was the in-laws. It was a social event, and running out of wine would be seen as a serious embarrassment. Mary, noticing the problem, approached Jesus and told him, "They have no wine." Jesus responded, asking, "Why is she telling him about it?" and continued, "My hour has not yet come." Notice that Jesus doesn't promise to resolve the issue. He doesn't say, "Yes, mother," but Mary doesn't seek an answer. Instead, she simply tells the servants to do whatever he says. I can't help but wonder, did she give him one of those looks? You know, the kind only a mother can give. Listen, my mother mastered the side eye. I'm sure many of us know exactly what I mean. Or did Mary simply have the faith that Jesus would know what to do? This moment in the gospel makes me think. When Mary says they have no wine, could she also be speaking for us? Perhaps at times we feel as though the wine has run out of the wedding feast in our own lives. Maybe the sense of joy, satisfaction, celebration has drained away from our work, our relationships, our marriages, or even our faith. Many experience seasons when it has felt like the wine has run out, when we're struck in the routine of daily life, or when we're overwhelmed by responsibilities. Maybe you've had a relationship that feels like a constant struggle, keeping the house clean, taking care of the kids, repairing the roof, maintaining the car. Your job might feel like a dead end, and your career could feel stagnant. Many know what it's like to feel as though the wine is running out. But then Jesus enters. He enters with power to transform. What an incredible way for Jesus to begin his public ministry. He steps into this moment of crisis, bringing with him the message that even when we face disaster, hurt, or disappointment, growth and fulfillment can still come from it. Notice, though, that Jesus doesn't perform the miracle alone. He asks the servants to help. He tells them to fill the jars with water and take them to the head waiter. If they hadn't followed his instructions, there may not have been a miracle, no transformation. This is an important point from my perspective. Not only can Jesus transform our struggles, our losses, our pain, but he also invites us to be part of the miracle. Will you help, he asks. And if we do not participate, if we do not bring him what we need, there may be nothing for him to transform. Did you notice that Jesus doesn't say anything special over the wine? He only says, fill the jars with water and take them to the head waiter. The water is transformed into wine, not because of a special ritual, but simply because Jesus, by his presence and his command, made it happen. Perhaps this tells us that Jesus is not just another messenger from God. He is God himself, present among us, capable of transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. Jesus is asking for our help. Bring me the water, and I will make it wine. Is inviting us to reach out to those around us whose wine is running out, those who are spiritually thirsty, those whose lives feel empty. We are called to remember those who are struggling, those whose joy and hope have dried up. Do we invite them to come and experience the love of God through the gospel? This gospel is more than just a story about a wedding. It's about emptiness. People are suffering of spiritual emptiness, far more than physical hunger. When we encounter people who are frustrated, bored, in despair, we have the opportunity to help fill that void. We can help the Lord in his work by praying for others, inviting them to experience the goodness of God, and witnessing to them what God has done in our own lives. As we approach the Eucharist today, we are reminded of the power of this moment. And as we break the bread, think of all the people whose souls would be nourished by that bread. And remember the words of Mary, do whatever he tells you. It's also worth noting that the Feast of the Baptism of the Lord, which we celebrated last week, marks the end of the Christmas season and ushers in ordinary time. The term ordinary time doesn't mean this period is any less important. It's simply a time in the liturgical calendar when we reflect on the life and ministry of Jesus without the emphasis of feasts or penance. During this season, we are involved to walk with the Lord, to grow closer to him, and to live out his teachings in our daily lives. It is a time to sanctify ourselves through his word and to practice the virtues of his life that inspires us. My prayer for us today is that we help the Lord serve his people and that we use this ordinary time to grow closer to God. Just as Jesus transformed water into wine at that wedding, he can transform our lives, our struggles, and our emptiness into something beautiful and full of joy. But we must be willing to bring him the water, to offer what we have, so that he can work in our lives and the lives in all those around us.